All right, so in question 1, this is on the no calculator portion. Okay, it says you have to write the function in standard form. When you're writing it in standard form, you need f of x equals, and then for this book, this is the standard form. They wouldn't tell you to write it in the same form it's presented in, okay? And you have to use the method of completing the square. So in terms of the work that you should show for this, your first step is going to be to group your x terms together. And then when you factor out the number from the x squared, you only take it out of those two terms, even if it goes into that last one. Okay, and then you have the plus 9 plus your blank space there. So when you fill that in, you are going to do half of b. This is now your b value. So if you do half of 4, you're going to get 2 squared. And then if you add 4, remember that you have to multiply by the 2. So it's really like you added 8 here. If you add 8 to this side, you have to subtract 8 to the same side. And then when you factor, oops, I put 2. Okay, and then when you're factoring this. This is x plus 2 squared. 9 plus negative 8 is going to be positive 1. That is going to be your final answer. We know it's a minimum based on the a value. So if the a value is positive, it opens up. You tell me it's a minimum. And then this says function notation. So function notation means f of your h value equals the k. hk is your vertex. Okay, so for this one, if you have negative 2, 1, your function notation is the f of negative 2 is equal to 1. Okay, so you'll have 2 lines to make sure you have enough space to get that written down. Okay, and then we're going to go over the calculator ones after we do the no calculator. Okay, so here it says describe the end behavior of the given function using the proper notation. On your test, these will be blanks that you have to fill in here and here. So explain how you arrived at your answer. Oh, and is that what yours says? If you didn't use a graph, or did I? No, you're not using a graph. Because it's on the no calculator. Okay, so what you have to tell me is that since the degree is even, the ends are going to go in the same direction. And then since the leading coefficient is negative, the graph falls on the right side. You could also say because the leading coefficient is negative, the graph goes down on the right. But the keywords I'm going to be looking for is the even degree, the ends are in the same direction, the leading coefficient is negative, the graph falls on the right. Okay, so those are the key terms that you'll need to have there. Okay, and then when you divide it using long division, you want to make sure it's in standard form. So you have x to the 4th minus 2x cubed. Notice that those were out of order, so you have to put them in the right order. And then you can decide if you want a placeholder in the divisor. You don't have to. Okay, so then you have x squared times x squared times negative 4, and then you just have to make sure if you don't put in your placeholder that you line this up. So this becomes negative, this becomes positive, the negative 2x cubed drops down, you get 0x squared plus 13x. Okay, and then we divide, so we get negative 2x here, so negative 2x cubed plus 8x. Again, just make sure you line that up. This becomes a plus, this becomes a minus, and that's how you get 5x as your remainder. So alternate form is just going to be the quotient plus the remainder over the divisor. All right, and then the last one, 5, it says find all the rational zeros by factoring. If it says by factoring, then I need to see that in your work. Okay, so we are going to start by factoring by grouping. Okay, so here I can take out x squared. Here I can take out -4. And if those are the same, I can break this down into x squared minus 4 times x minus 3. And then we do have to make sure we include any patterns. So if it says factoring, you have to factor completely. And that means if there are any special patterns, okay, or a GCF, you have to make sure to take those out. Once you have it factored, to find the zeros, everything is just equal to 0 and you would solve. So if you set x plus 2 equal to 0, you get x as -2. If you set this equal to 0, you get 2. If you set this equal to 0, you get 3. Okay, any questions on the no calculator part of your first page? All right.